But the interesting thing is the car was never wrecked, never blown apart, and it was incredibly well worn in as a survivor. So I joined John's team at Curated in 2021 full time. I interned with him previously for a summer in 2020. And obviously, Miras are a big part of Curated's DNA. I mean, John's told the story of his father's car and just the numerous Miura SVs that have traded through the dealer at the time. And just being around those cars and seeing what they've shaped going forward is really a fantastic piece that every time one comes in, everyone kind of stops what they're doing. And it's an event when these cars are around. So a big part of what I do, I always joke with everyone that my role at Curated is the only thing I don't do is accounting and HR, but one of my main focuses with John is sourcing cars, which proves to be very difficult, and you're banging down a lot of doors and you're getting a lot of no's, and that's one of the main things which makes the hunt intriguing, but challenging. So a lot of times, especially with the early AMG Mercedes, you'll get guys that say, hey, I've got an AMG Hammer, then it's a body kit with a fake with 300E with a straight six with 200,000 miles on it. So a lot of times you get a lot of no's with that. So you never know where, and you have to chase every lead with every sort of bit of authenticity. I was browsing Facebook late at night when you can't sleep, as many of us do, looking around, and feeds a mix of car posts, friends, someone's getting married, someone's having a kid, and then various other news and memes and everything else mixed in. So I'm scrolling around, and then what's nice about the car world is you get to keep track of people in through all manner of things, and you never know what's going to run across your way. A gentleman by the name of Roy Spencer, who owns Mercedes Heritage, my first love of cars has kind of really been early AMG Mercedes, and then kind of get involved through the community and all the 108s and kind of the SLs and all the 300 SLs and everything else involved with the mark. But there's a gentleman by the name of Roy Spencer out of California who does a lot of dealings in like the cabriolets, I think the 3.5 cabs that he does a lot of, but always does really, really, really high-end Mercedes stuff. And so occasionally I would chat with him, but it was very sparse. One day I'm browsing and I see this post come up of a black Miura looking for a home. And I'm like, why does he have this car? And I've never seen this car. So immediately it's like midnight in Florida. So it's 9 o'clock there. So I get his phone number off of his website since we were just like Facebook friends. I start calling him like 4 times in a row, like, hey, like what's going on with this? And I'm sure he doesn't recognize a weird 301 number at 9 o'clock at night. But I think the 4 repeated calls, he was finally like, all right, who is this? And it turns out he's selling the car for a client. And it was a P400 Miura. I can't remember the chassis number, but it started life as a red car, and then the second owner bought it in 76. At that point, the car was stripped where it was scuffed and painted with black lacquer paint and had BBS race wheels fitted to the car and large flares put onto the car. Resto mod, kind of California hot rod period piece. But super cool car. I think it had pretty low miles on it, but I reach out to John and was like, hey, what do you think? He's like, yeah, kind of interested, but let's see. We always use an inspector whenever we buy a car. We always fly someone out, put hands on it. John and I have, mostly John's found that it's a good way to get kind of remove the emotional aspect from the deal when you can get shiny object syndrome and like, oh, I got to have it, but to have an independent third party go out and verify it. And he went through it, he looked, and all the body numbers, all the stampings, all the numbers, everything was matching. So that was the big thing where John was like, wow, I really like this car, where it's a good restoration candidate for someone if they wanted to put it back to original. But the interesting thing is the car was never wrecked, never blown apart, and it was incredibly well worn in as a survivor. So as a time capsule car where you look at the interior's got perfect wear on it. The shift knob has got the perfect marksman's hand. The handbrake's just got a little bit of wear on it. And it's all the things that I really like of a car I like to say that sometimes cars are more important than just the way they're born. And a lot of that story is interesting where I'd like to say the first owners and they determine the path of the car a lot of times. So another famous example is the Dolphin SE30. I mean, that car should have the dolphins put on it because that's how the original owner put that on there, and that was the fate he decided for the car. So this Miura, having a car that someone had, took care of, and drove it, put miles on it in California, but there was no photos of it. Nobody knew about it. It was just a blank VIN number on all the Miura registries, which was the intriguing part, that it hadn't been seen, hadn't been photographed. but it had maintenance. It had the engine taken out and rebuilt and gone through, but just a really great, true, honest Miura. So the total number of Miuras produced was 762 cars, produced from 1966 to 1973. So the early cars were known as the thin chassis cars, and the later cars were known as the SVs, which featured a split sump where they had the gearbox and the engine oil and the differential oil were finally separated, where they actually had a shared engine sump on the early cars as well as other numerous updates on the SV, such as the wider bodywork, the removal of the eyelashes, and a couple other pieces as well. We go out and John's like, "Yeah, we'll take it." And the number worked out well for everyone. And the car comes off the truck in Miami like about a week or so later, and it's just tight and true because you got the wider wheels, whereas the earlier Muras with the taller sidewall, they felt great, but they didn't have the low profile, kind of the stiffer rubber. So you get the confidence of the more modern compound, and it's just a really, 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 really fun piece. So when we got the car in, one of our guys, Gabe, had a client that was looking for a Miura and represented like, hey, he was in love with the idea of owning the Miura. I don't think he's actually ever seen the car, but he's had it. It's in our showroom, and we've taken it to a couple of places, but photographed it fantastically with famous photographer Zach Brell. We got a really cool port location that I found and went through there and did that, and that was a lot of fun. But he just likes the idea of owning the Miura. But for me, it's this continuing the story of being this unrestored car of a reference where, hey, certain things are not restored, so this is how this went in certain ways, because once cars are completely blown apart, sometimes they don't go back together the right way or just a little bit different, and then you can't drive it and enjoy it as well.
When you get a ticket, it might look something like this, but the first thing that you need to do is take a picture of that ticket and send it to 305 305. That will get the ticket clinic on your case immediately. They've got brick and mortar offices in Georgia, Florida, and California, but they can help you find a ticket no matter where you get it in the United States by helping you find a local attorney that will do everything they can to help you avoid costly fines, insurance premium increases, points on your license, risk of suspension, even jail time. They've helped me out with this ticket and many others, and a lot of my friends as well. So check them out now at the link in the description below, or again, text your ticket to 305 305 to get the ticket clinic on your case. They are the perfect partner in your fight against any speeding ticket.